She wouldn't get scared about the doll.
The doll doesn't scare me because the doll's an inanimate object. There's not everybody keeps thinking like Annabelle has it. It's not. Yeah. There's a demon that surrounds Annabelle that we should be afraid of.
His name is Greg.
Annabelle Homecoming is here. Aside from Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson, I have no idea who else is in this movie. Just when you thought these movies couldn't get any worse. Sorry, I mean, just when you thought it was safe to go back to the cinema, it's still not. So any given Annabelle product, I would have given a miss at the cinema. However, up until now, I've had an investment in the Conjuring movies purely because of the Ed and Lorraine Warren stuff. So when I was happy for the Annabelle movies to just be garbage that I don't have to watch, like until it's on Netflix when I'm horribly bored, they stick Ed and Lorraine Warren in this new movie, so I wanted to see if that made this film any better. But no. Since I've seen every Conjuring spin-off up until this point, my God, I could predict everything in this movie. I am so onto your goddamn sound design, camera framing, and script writing. Seriously, I could make a better movie than this. The jump scare tutorial I made my La Llorona review. It was depressing seeing that be the only thing that this film rides on. Alrighty, just as the shameless clickbait title suggests, you too could follow this simple step-by-step plan to remove all integrity your successful franchise once had and end up needing a reboot. Because when there was once money, there can be money again, according to Platinum Dunes. So, this movie is so nothing. It's essentially an It All Takes Place in One Night movie, but this isn't really a fresh change of pace for the franchise. It becomes very problematic the more you compare it to previous movies. It can't be a simple, small movie because it has to have just as many monsters in it than a Conjuring movie. So this movie starts off with the Annabelle intro from the first Conjuring movie, but I think they reshot it and made it look terrible. Ed and Lorraine take the dumb doll from the nurses and put it in their car and head home. Hence the title, Annabelle Returns. As they drive home, they pass a car accident, and then their car magically stops next to a cemetery. Ed gets out and checks the engine, and Lorraine sees a bunch of ghosts at the cemetery. And the doll has something to do with it. Then she looks back at Ed, and he is surrounded by all these spooky ghosts that are looking shady. And then one of them pushes him onto the road, and then BAM! A truck nearly runs him over. Bloody Annabelle. Then they arrive at home with Annabelle. Just like the title again. Annabelle's back. Put her in a rocking chair, squirt some Jesus water on her, but she's still too evil. She's making that low bass sound from the Paranormal Activity movies. You know, when something evil is afoot. And then they decide to lock her in a case, made from church glass or something, and then the sound stops. Alright, intro done. Now, the premise is the Warrens' daughter Judy needs a babysitter for the night, because Ed and Lorraine have to go somewhere for the night, probably to a better movie. So Judy, her babysitter, their Snoopy friend, a boy that likes her babysitter, get pranked by ghosts all night. There's nothing much else to say. This movie is essentially Annabelle Night at the Museum. The friend of the babysitter's dad died recently. Then she rudely includes herself into the babysitting, and her grand plan is to go into the demon room and talk to her ghost dad.
You don't try to threaten me! Ghost dad.
She heard about the Warrens being able to talk to ghosts, and for some reason, going into their house to find something supernatural will help her talk to her papa. Logically, she would have just tried to meet Lorraine Warren and be like, "Can you help me talk to my dead daddy with your mind powers?" Right? But nah, this is a modern day horror movie. It's not meant to have logic. It's meant to have people doing dumb things so then the movie can last at least an hour and a half. She goes in the room and touches fucking everything, and what she touches comes to life and attacks everyone throughout the night. And I guess Annabelle makes this shit happen. Annabelle is just a big fucking excuse. Like, it would be fine if she touched all the demon artifacts, and just by doing that, she unleashes them, because she wasn't with the Warrens or a priest when she did it. But, nah, Annabelle must be the beacon for all this crap. I'm surprised it wasn't the nun, or Bathsheba returning. What did it mean when she played with the doll? Because Annabelle had nothing to do with that story? Or was the nun behind all of it? So this movie has an assortment of spooky, wacky ghosts, or demons. The line becomes sort of blurred. There's Annabelle. There's a bride covered in blood with a butcher knife who I thought was La Llorona at first. Like, look at him. Don't mean to sound brightest, but look at him. Remember her? She was connected to Annabelle. But whatever. There's a rubber man with coins in his eyes, and he keeps dropping coins everywhere. And one of his victims looks like my uncle.
But yeah, I remember hanging it in the bloody tree out the backyard near the wood heap there, and Leonard's out there about 4 in the afternoon pulling all the skin and gut and everything out of it. Because Pam said, "Where'd you get that from?" Don't ask.
Oh yeah, there's a fucking werewolf. They try to set it up as serious as possible, but like, man, just don't do it. One of them is going through a folder talking about dog people or something, and then they have a photo of like a werewolf doing the Bigfoot walk. And oh my god, when they do the scene, the guy who likes the babysitter is outside being a creep. Then someone broke the smoke machine, everything fogs up, and then out of the fog comes, I kid you not, the CGI model from the Goosebumps movie. Oh god! The Crooked Man is fine because it's an actual skinny actor in a costume that just coincidentally comes across as CGI stop motion. But the wolf, you just don't do this after this. But what follows for the rest of the movie is everything you have seen before. The characters are in a room, everything goes quiet, and get ready for it. And one of the super wacky and cool and badass and creepy AF gimmicks in this movie is there's an old TV that should be black and white, but it has like a ghostly webcam. The girl goes up to it and it shows 20 seconds into the future, but it's reflecting her image like it's a webcam. Why? What's filming her? And it shows a jump scare that's going to happen in 20 seconds time. But when the jump scare actually happens, they still treat it like a jump scare. Like, no, we just saw it happen. It's not scary the second time. And then the discount La Cucaracha stabs the girl with the dead dad, but psych, wasn't a real knife, wasn't a real stab, because ghosts aren't real and good scripts aren't real. And then the bride, like, vomits blood into her mouth to possess her, like Bathsheba did in the first Conjuring movie. But I cannot for the life of me remember how that was resolved. So drop a comment if you remember what happened after she got blood in the mouth. Also smash that like button for La Llorona because lady needs some love. Everyone forgot about her. And then more stuff happens. There's a creepy board game and hands come out of it. Oh yeah, then they discover that Annabelle needs to go back into the glass case because it escaped. Or the dickhead let her out of the box trying to talk to her dad. So as they are doing this, the real black goat demon that controls the Annabelle doll finally shows up. Because remember him? But now he's got like a changed look. Nice. Wouldn't after 3 movies, they would just focus more on him? So he needs Judy's soul. But as Annabelle?
You need to give her a soul, dear. She wants a soul.
Like, is this Freddy rules? He just needs more souls to be powerful?
I'll get you, my pretty, and your little soul, too.
And so they're trying to get the doll back into the case. Goat Demon is fighting them. And remember in my La Llorona review how I referenced the video co-pilot tutorial with the demon face? Man, they legit watched another tutorial. The sucking the soul through the face one.
Today we're going to be creating a cool energy soul-sucking effect.
I'm sorry, but I shouldn't be making these connections. So then they get Annabelle in the case, and they go to bed, and then they wake up in the morning, and all is fine in the world. Just like Night at the Museum. Daylight stops the demons from being threats. Then the movie ends with a dumb, sappy, feel-good message or ending. And yeah, now, your next step to ending the Conjuring universe. I used to think I got the appeal of Annabelle, but after 3 movies, I just don't fucking get it. This doll does nothing but be there 1 minute, isn't there a next. Or not be there 1 minute, but be there the next. And at the end of the movie, it's the Black Goat Demon that finally shows itself, and they defeat it with proton packs, or Tenacious D. I don't remember how they defeat it in the other movies. But after 3 Annabelle movies, how is it officially not scary anymore? When you show the monster too much, it's boring. This thing is boring to me. But sitting in the cinema, there was a whole bunch of teenagers. the next generation to run this planet. And every time Annabelle would show up on screen, they'd go, ooh, ooh. Like you knew it was coming. You know what the movie's called, but every time it shows up, they act like the doll isn't meant to do things. Oh, no way! Why is the doll moving on its own? What's going on here? 5 minutes later. Oh, what? Doll's there! This movie, it ain't playing by the rules, man. I know the doll is just a brilliant redesign on James Wan's behalf. Like you take the original Raggedy Ann doll, and then you make it look like this. But the doll only worked for me when it was the intro to the Warrens. Like, yeah, they once messed around with a haunted doll. Anyway, onto the real stories about possession with real people. And also in this movie, the doll doesn't even move its head or eyes. Like in its own third movie, it does far less than any other Annabelle movie. But Jesus Christ, why is it still scary to people? Drop a comment, let me know why this movie still makes audience go, ooh, man, the doll just keeps hitting it out of the park. Creepy AF, brah! And smash that like button if you need to keep your eyes closed when Annabelle's on the screen. I struggled to keep my eyes open during this movie, but thankfully the jump scares were so fucking loud it kept waking me up. And for the first half of this movie, nothing happens. And then once the ghost shit started, that's when all the fucking teenagers in the audience start chatting. Like really now, when the horror is actually starting and just fucking talking? But I guess this is just what happens. These generic, cheap scripts breed this type of brain-dead audience, and then the cycle just moves on and nothing is learnt. And then when really well-made indie horror movies shine to the surface, well then they're overrated and boring. Fuck Hereditary. Man, so slow and boring. Then they forgot it was a horror movie and then they shoved in satanic crap at the end. So cliche. The fucking movie was bad. You can also check out my Hereditary review below, the link's in the description. Alright, now for the final tips and tricks on making Annabelle Dawn of Justice the final nail in the cinematic coffin. Honestly, at this point, I just don't get why it's called the Conjuring universe anymore. If you look at the actual roster of movies, how many are actual Conjuring movies? May as well just call it Annabelle and Friends. Now, I've ragged on these movies for a while now, but I had a realization recently that it's not out of hate, but out of sort of love and frustration in a way. This franchise at one point was something I was so hopeful for, and it did not go the way I thought it would, nor the way I wanted it. This is the thing, I loved the first Conjuring movie. I felt that after the Insidious movies, James Wan was working towards his perfect ghost demon horror movie. And The Conjuring was so close, but I think he nailed it with The Conjuring 2, had it not been a setup for a universe and stayed as a based on real events. And after when the first movie came out, I heard news of a sequel in the works and that James Wan might return as director. And I was hoping it would become a franchise based on Warren case files and they would be classy 70s retro style horror films that tackled real alleged stories. Then the Annabelle movie came along, to which the real life story of Annabelle was wrapped up in the intro in the first Conjuring movie. So the spin-off wasn't based on anything, which confused me at first. If it's all based on the Warrens, why are they pumping out a spin-off of the stupid doll for? But whatever, The Conjuring 2 came out and it was exactly what I wanted this franchise to keep progressing into. Because James Wan's Conjuring movies have a craft to them. Yes, they are filled with jump scares and horror cliches, but he puts in an equal amount of focus on the human characters themselves, as well as the horror gimmicks. Having Ed and Lorraine Warren as the main characters is such an effective element in his films. Horror cliches only suck if you get absolutely nothing out of the human characters. But all the spin-offs, on the other hand, it's just people, monsters, previous movie connection, sequel setup. The way I used to see this franchise was the Conjuring series and the Conjuring universe. The Ed and Lorraine stories were the main event movies in the series, and the spin-offs are just slapped together side stories of the universe and don't necessarily have to connect. But now with this new Annabelle Strikes Back, not only is it a completely bullshit story made up for the universe, it now crosses over Ed and Lorraine Warren's characters. Turns out, after all the crazy shit that happens in the actual Conjuring movies, all of that shit also happened to their daughter and friends over the course of one night. And without them or a priest there to battle those demons, they just lock Annabelle in a glass case and the day is won. Now this can just fall into the realm of, well, all these movies are bullshit anyway because ghosts and Jesus don't exist. But something that's been kicking around my mind recently is why it's more interesting for these movies to be based on supposed true stories rather than a complete fabrication of anything. Now, I don't believe in spirits, I'm not religious, but I have a fascination with the idea of ghosts and demons through the medium of horror movies. I like scary stories. Now, when I say these movies are better for why they adapt alleged true stories, is when you think about it, back in those days when ghost, demon, and poltergeist stories were coming out, if they are real stories, then fine. If they are made up, then these people have to put in an actual effort to make sure that these unbelievable stories are a bit believable. Otherwise, stories would just be, 500 demons showed up and my house blew up and my children turned into werewolves and everyone in the village turned into zombies. Too much unbelievable shit that sounds like a child rambling. Doesn't make for a story you'd buy into or want to study further. So regardless of people who claim to have these horrific ghost stories, or even the Warrens themselves turn out to be true or not, they must be creative people to make up these stories and find the right balance of amazing yet believable. It's like they are writing great horror movie scripts for you. And then when movies like The Conjuring are made with a talented filmmaker at the helm, they feel like really fleshed out stories, years in development. But movies like literally every single Conjuring spin-off, which are all bullshit from pen on paper to the premiere, they are all just lackluster and forgettable, because whatever they think up can just be put into the movie. Like Hollywood horror screenwriters can't write a hoax worth shit, and that's why I don't care if the Warrens made up all these events. They are fascinating to listen to, because there was no CGI possibilities in the 70s. Imagination with logic and restraint can go a long way. Hollywood at this point is all imagination and no logic and restraint. Now, I recently rewatched The Exorcist, and with that movie, you can see why it was the most terrifying movie for so many decades. It spends the longest time trying to rationally explain what's going on with Reagan with science and logic. And once it's revealed to be a demon, it's too late. These movies, it starts off with the demon, but the demon sucks. Like, it just makes loud noise. So, Lorraine Warren passed away this year, which is important to note. And if you have seen the horror documentary My Amityville Horror, which follows the story of Daniel Lutz and his recounting of the events from the Amityville house, they visit Lorraine at her house towards the end of the movie. And what follows is a genuinely emotional moment between her and the grown-up Daniel Lutz as they reflect on the events from the 70s.
How are you? Good. I'm well. Thank you. How are you?
Man, I'm doing well. I haven't seen you, but I'm sorry about Ed.
Thank you, honey. So am I. Okay. So am I, honey. Yeah, there'll never be another Ed.
No, there won't.
No,
there won't.
So whether her along with Ed made up all of their life stories, they helped people, that's for sure. But the unfortunate thing is Lorraine Warren would have had to sign off on this new movie because Vera Farmiga was returning to portray her, a completely fabricated plot about not just her and her husband, but also her daughter, which is essentially a Goosebumps junk story for children, which sort of hurts her legacy and will now bring her credibility into question. With the Conjuring movies following her and Ed traveling and investigating all these ghost cases, this movie just makes my brain boil as to why it wasn't sent directly to Netflix. So this is the lowest performing movie in the Conjuring universe. Doesn't really matter because the budget was so low, and just making 100 million in general is enough of a profit. But yeah, since the box office is going down, the one-trick jump scare pony mindset is starting to wear thin and fast. It just shows that this franchise has officially run out of steam. And since it was 2 weeks before I even got the chance to watch this movie, I was able to see it underperform not only with critics but also the box office before I laid down my judgment on the film. And no review I have seen has been favorable towards it, but all for good reason. It made a tiny bit more than La Llorona, but they won't even put that on the same list with the other Conjuring spin-offs. It had this dickhead in it, why won't they count it? We still have the Conjuring 3 around the corner, which is currently shooting, and James Wan will not be returning. Instead, it will be directed by the guy who made everyone's favorite, The Curse of La Vida Loca, which is one of the most cheap and predictable movies in the series. And now he's in charge of the serious main movies. Good lord. I don't even know what's left to do with these movies. If their daughter can fight the same number of monsters from a regular Conjuring movie in one night, and it's a dumb Annabelle solo movie, what can you do next? If this third Conjuring movie bombs, then that's the end of the universe. Their spin-offs are dipping in the box office, their new additions don't catch on, and just Ed and Lorraine Warren's characters being in it aren't draw cards anymore. Now, it could be good to do a reboot in the form of a Netflix series, and like each episode is a different Warren case file, and every episode can take you around not only America, but the whole world. There are heaps of good Warren stories on the internet that the movies haven't even adapted yet. As I said before, I had high hopes for this franchise just focusing on Ed and Lorraine Warren's case files. But it just became this repetitive junk so fast. I love the movies that James Wan directs, but I fucking hate the movies he produces. $0 out of $13! Oh! There was one moment in the movie I think I liked, but I can't even remember what it was, because the whole movie was just a snooze fest. So, should you stay away from this movie?